Hello and once again greetings from the vicarage. Today is the second Sunday of Advent and it's lovely to be able to welcome people into church again and have a service of Holy Communion. I know that for many of you can't attend because of our limited numbers, but the words of this message are the same words that I shall say in church. We'll be thinking and praying for you, and you'll all have your own turn to come into church to a service before Christmas. Whilst preparing this message, I've heard some very encouraging news that a vaccine has been passed and is ready for use to inoculate all of us from this dreadful virus. Hopefully, in time, we can all get back to something more normal and what we were used to. Today in church we're lighting our second Advent candle, and the candle is to remind us of John the Baptist. Now he's an interesting character who played a big part in preparing the people ready for Jesus. To start off with, he was a miracle baby born to Zechariah and Elizabeth, who were very elderly and who hadn't had any children. Both of the parents were from priest families, and usually the sons would follow in their father's footsteps. John was different from all the other spiritual leaders in many ways. He didn't dress in fine clothes. He preferred, as we all know, camel hair, and they were wrapped round him and strapped with a leather belt. As you remember from all our children's plays, he ate grasshoppers, locusts and wild honey. Not the usual sort of food by any means. He started baptising people who repented of their sins, and he got this idea from the Jewish practice of taking a ritual bath to purify oneself before worship. John was a real living prophet of the day, and his words and actions rang true, matching up with what he prophesied in the Old Testament. And above all, the crowds really loved him, which we know from the Bible, and which is also confirmed in ancient Roman history written by Josephus, who was a Roman Jew. The crowds were expecting a Messiah, someone to lead them back to God. But before the Messiah, they were expecting a prophet to prepare the way. We know this from reading the Old Testament books of Malachi and Isaiah. John led a sort of monk-like life, living in the wilderness. And the wilderness was in Judea, in the Judean desert, alongside the Dead Sea. Because of this, some scholars believe that he may have joined the Essenes, who were a group of Jewish people who lived in Qumran and who produced the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, I've always been fascinated by the Dead Sea Scrolls, and when I was staying in Jerusalem on my last visit, I went and found the Israel Museum where the scrolls are on show. Now the museum is a huge place and there are different parts for different sorts of thing. And the book, the shrine of the book, which is built in the grounds, holds the Dead Sea Scrolls. It has a fascinating shape, which is in fact made to look like the end of a scroll. No doubt you've seen this on TV or in a book. And you enter this part of the museum by going down underground. And the picture that I took inside, which was against the rules, as you're not allowed any photography, shows one of the scrolls which was found in the caves at Qumran. It's a few chapters from the book of Isaiah, and this is part of the largest manuscript which in actual fact was found. Now, whether John lived with or spent time with the Essenes, we don't know for sure, but they were both in the same part of the Judean desert. We don't know why John chose the sort of lifestyle that he did choose, when he could have had a much more affluent life as a priest. Maybe God led him, or he chose a lifestyle in keeping with prophecies he believed he would fulfill. When he started his ministry, he preached along both sides of the River Jordan, and it was after such a baptism service that Jesus started his own ministry, and many of John's followers then became followers of Jesus. Today's Gospel reading is from Mark, and you'll find it in the first chapter, reading from the first verse up to verse 8. Here in the second verse, it refers to the prophet Isaiah, who had prophesied this exact event some 700 years earlier. This shows the accuracy of the prophets and what they were teaching all those years ago. Finally, the day had come when Isaiah had spoken about all those years came true, and the Messiah that the people had been waiting for and hoping for was about to appear. Moving on to our second reading, it is from the prophet Isaiah, reading in chapter 40, verses 1 to 11. Now, chapter 40 makes a dramatic change. The first 39 chapters were written during Isaiah's ministry, and the following chapters were written some 20 years later, towards the end of his life. From chapter 40, Isaiah speaks about the majesty of God, who is coming to rule the earth. And we read those very familiar words that we read in Mark's Gospel about the preparing the way for the Lord. Isaiah speaks about straightening and smoothing the road, which means removing all the obstacles and laying out the red carpet for the coming of the Lord. Isaiah told the people to prepare to see God. John the Baptist used these same words as he challenged the people to prepare to see the coming Messiah. We too are challenged to prepare ourselves to see the Messiah. Now, we all fill our homes with decorations and lights to celebrate the birth of the Messiah, but we must also be prepared for the Messiah to return again. I ask the question, are you ready to greet him if he would come over this next period of Christmas? And how would he find you? Maybe as you open your Advent calendar each day and put up or look at your beautiful decorations, you remind yourselves that we are looking back and celebrating the most wonderful occasion, the birth of Jesus Christ. But also, we're looking forward to an even greater occasion, when Jesus Christ will return to earth and be with all of us again. So this Advent season is a season to remind us to be ready. Amen.